With so many different types of sim rig available, you may have asked yourself which type is actually best. Should I go for a all-in-one or a tubular sim rig? Or maybe I'll go for an aluminium profile rig? Answering the question of which sim rig is best isn't quite as simple as you think, as each different type of rig comes with its own pros and cons. In this video, I'm going to take a detailed look at two of the most popular styles of sim rig. I'll put both aluminium profile sim rigs and tubular sim rigs head to head. I'll compare both the designs along with the performance, and I'll undergo a bunch of flex tests on various parts of each sim rig. The goal here really is to see which sim rig is the better buy and which better meets your requirements. Now, depending on your specific requirements, you may be able to rule out some styles of sim rig straight away. And you can do so by asking yourself a few quite simple questions. The first of those questions is, what is your budget? Sim racing can be an expensive hobby, but it doesn't necessarily have to be. Wheel stands and desk mounts are feasible options for mounting a racing wheel, and both are relatively low cost. If you're lucky enough that you do have a larger budget for a sim rig purchase, you can start looking more towards which type of sim rig offers the most amount of adaptability for you. Also, ask what sim racing products you're going to mount to your rig. Taking into account which products you currently have and how you're going to mount them to your rig is pretty important. This is especially true if you're looking at an all-in-one or a tubular rig, because these styles of sim rigs often require additional accessories in order to mount all of your gear. If you're only mounting a racing wheel and pedals, pretty much every type of sim rig will meet your needs, but if you have shifters, handbrakes, button boxes and more, you may need to consider different ways of mounting these and whether those ways are available. Another big selling factor for a sim rig is just how much space it takes up. Full sim rigs such as all-in-ones and tubular rigs will always take up more space than a wheel stand or a desk mount. Wheel stands also have the added benefit of sometimes being completely collapsible and easy to store away, and this is something that a tubular or 80/20 sim rig simply cannot offer. It's also worth potentially looking at your sim rig as a kind of long-term investment. Sim racing is a slippery slope when it comes to equipment. Often upgrading one part of your sim rig will necessitate upgrading something else. For example, if you upgrade to a high-powered direct drive racing wheel, you'll certainly need a sturdy platform to mount it to. If you're currently using a desk clamp or even a wheel stand, this may not be suitable for the extra power a direct drive wheel can offer. When choosing your sim rig, you should consider whether you're likely to upgrade any gear over time. If you are, opting for a sturdy cockpit such as an 80/20 sim rig could be your best long-term option and avoid you having to upgrade your sim rig again in the future. And then there's always the look of your chosen sim rig to consider. Many sim racers may not like the industrial styling of an 80/20 rig, and this is where tubular sim rigs often have an advantage, as many rigs such as the Trak Racer TR8 Pro, which I have in this video, look much more sleek than their aluminium profile counterparts. So now I'm going to take a deeper dive at the two types of sim rig I'm comparing in this video, and the first of those is an aluminium profile rig. These types of sim rigs use strips of aluminium profile of varying widths to create a frame. Often the profile will be 80/20, which led to the name 80/20 rigs. However, many sim rigs use profile that's actually much larger than this. The Sim-Lab GT1 Pro, which you can see in this video, primarily utilises an 80x40mm profile. Now, the true benefit of an aluminium profile rig is that it's designed to be as solid and rigid as possible. The industrial style design and the use of aluminium profile is all designed to ensure there's little to no flex throughout the sim rig. If you've ever raced using a wheel stand or a desk clamp, you more than likely have noticed that your desk or wheel stand vibrates under the stress of the force feedback. With more powerful racing wheels, this issue can become so bad that a certain sim rig just isn't usable, as it can't withstand the forces that your wheel is producing. The same also applies to your pedals. High-end pedals often include load cells or sometimes hydraulic brakes, and these require a lot of force to activate, and they can flex and bend the plate which your pedals are mounted to. All aluminium profile sim rigs, including this GT1 Pro that I'm using, are designed to eliminate this flex or vibration, and they're the best sim rigs in the business for producing a rock solid foundation. The second major benefit of an aluminium profile rig is that the profiles themselves really open up customization. All pieces of aluminium profile have slot gaps, and you can use these gaps to mount things to your sim rig. This feature is very unique to aluminium profile rigs, as with a traditional rig, you'll often struggle to mount certain accessories. Quite often you'll need to buy an additional accessory from the brand that created your sim rig in order to mount your gear. With an aluminium profile rig, that's not really the case. You can simply bolt your gear anywhere along the profile where it will fit, and this allows for ultimate customization on where your sim racing equipment is positioned. Now, tubular sim rigs on the other hand are also designed to be sturdy, much like their aluminium profile counterparts. However, they're also designed to look much more appealing. This can be a big selling point for sim racers, as the industrial style of an 80/20 rig isn't to everybody's taste. In fact, years ago I purchased my old Trak Racer TR8 Pro, which you can see here, simply due to how much better it looked than an 80/20 sim rig equivalent at the time. And that is the real selling point of a tubular sim rig. In my opinion, they often look much better. The rounded metal tubes that make up the frame can be bent into a wide variety of shapes, making for some interesting looking designs. The TR8 Pro that I have here uses straight sections with kinks throughout the design to bend the frame around you. This also allows the TR8 Pro to be incredibly easy to get into and out of. Unlike most aluminium profile rigs, which feature a vertical frame to hold the racing wheel, the TR8 Pro sim rig has a nice gap where you can simply slide your legs into and out of the cockpit. After owning and using a Trak Racer TR8 Pro for many years, there are some things that you should know if you're looking to buy a tubular sim rig. While I never really regretted buying the TR8 Pro, it did make things difficult for me at certain times. When it comes to expanding your sim rig and mounting additional peripherals, things can be a little complicated. With the TR8 Pro in particular, there are only a few predefined areas where elements can be mounted to. One area is on the top next to the wheelbase, and you can see I've got a keyboard tray mounted here, and the second area is on the side of the seat where I've got my shifter mounted. Other than these areas, I really struggle to mount any extra peripherals, and this is the main downside of a tubular rig. They may look fantastic, but adaptability isn't always their strong suit. Now, one of the most important parts of any sim rig is the ability to support your racing wheels and pedals with minimal flexing. Any movement, vibration or flex present in a sim rig will take away from the actual force feedback being created by your wheel. Also, if there's flex in your pedal plate, you may not have as much of an accurate read over your brake pedal. Now for this part of the video, I'm going to compare both the tubular Trak Racer rig with the aluminium profile Sim-Lab rig. I'm going to look at flex in three key areas: the wheel mount, the pedal mount and the shifter mount. Now starting with the wheel mount flex, when you see the Trak Racer TR8 Pro, you'll notice some vibration during higher frequency force feedback moments. Now I'm using an 18Nm direct drive Acertech wheel here, and I've got the force feedback set to 100% for this comparison. And I'm racing the McLaren 720S Evo GT3 in Assetto Corsa Competizione. The reason for this flex is due to the design of the tubular frame, where it wraps up from the rear of the sim rig and over towards the wheel mount. Moving over to the aluminium profile rig, you'll see a little bit of vibration again. However, there certainly isn't anywhere near as much as the tubular sim rig. And this is because it's supported vertically, where the Trak Racer rig overhangs with the wheel plate. Now let's look at the pedal mounting. Both sim rigs utilise similar custom mounts for the pedals, and both are constructed from relatively thick metal to give the pedals good support. With the Trak Racer, you can see very minimal flexing when I press the load cell brake on this Acertech Forte set. And this is the same with the GT1 Pro. There's little to no real noticeable movement with both sim rigs in this department, which is great. You'll often find pedal plates flex when they overhang the end of the sim rig or they aren't correctly supported at the rear. Now the final area I'm going to compare is the shifter or handbrake mounting. This is probably the area which has the most clear-cut difference between these two sim rigs. The Trak Racer has a tubular frame mounted to the exterior of the main rig. Now this is mounted at the bottom with 2 bolts, and it extends out and up, and right away you can see that this is problematic. There is a lot of movement when activating the handbrake, and this is simply due to the limited support that the whole shifter mount has. There isn't a ton of movement, and it is certainly functional, but it is not great. However, switching over to the aluminium profile Sim-Lab cockpit, you'll immediately see a difference, because this sim rig utilises additional vertical supports at the front and rear of the shifter mount. There's little to no movement in the frame itself during use. Now you will see a little bit of flex here, but all of the flex comes from the actual shifter plate which I've got mounted to the frame. Within the frame itself, you can see no real movement. You'll see from these flex tests that the aluminium profile Sim-Lab rig easily wins in producing a more stable platform. The tubular rig performs incredibly well and has held up for many years of punishment from me, but the aluminium profile rig simply outperforms in this category, with better support for your racing wheel, less flex and vibration throughout the whole frame, and much better designed shifter mounting. So with everything said and done, which style of sim rig or cockpit should you buy? Well, for me the answer is much more simple than I actually first imagined, but it does depend on your needs, and I've got a few different recommendations for different types of sim racer. If you're looking for ultimate customization and adaptability, and you want as much flexibility as possible out of your sim rig, not flexing as in bad flexing throughout your sim rig, but flexibility in where you mount certain things, then an aluminium profile sim rig gives you exactly that. Next, if you're planning to upgrade your sim racing gear in the future to more high-end equipment, or if you want to add more peripherals over time, again, an aluminium profile cockpit gives you more flexibility. Now, if design is your priority, and you are looking to create a sim rig that looks cooler than everybody else's, then a tubular sim rig is probably the better way to go. Now, some 80/20 sim rigs such as the GT1 Pro I have here are catching up in terms of aesthetics. I still think the Trak Racer does look cooler. And if you like to build your sim rig once and not touch it again, a tubular sim rig is certainly better. Constructing an aluminium profile sim rig can be a bit daunting due to the amount of customization you have. Now, I hope this video has been kind of helpful in deciding which way to go, whether you want 80/20 or a tubular rig. And if you in particular want to look at the Trak Racer TR8 Pro or the Sim-Lab GT1, I've got video reviews for both of those sim rigs, and I'll leave them in the description below, so go over and check them out if you're interested. But for now, if you've enjoyed this video, hit that like button, consider subscribing for more sim racing content, more gear reviews, more F1 content as well. Until next time, I will see you guys on track.